Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2025 library tour. In this episode, the ancient Near East and Egypt. This is one of the few parts of my history collection that I have managed to wring some order out of chaos. When I first started my history collection, the only sort of organizing principle I had was the size of the shelves. The two bookcases that formed the nucleus of my history collection, in the middle of both shelves, there's the shelves are such that you can only get smaller books on there. So that's what I did. I put the smaller trade paperbacks and mass markets in those slots. Although I did want to start organizing by subject, but it never quite worked out. I would occasionally get some organization attempts made, but they never quite worked out, as you will see once we get to this bookcase here and where exactly my American history is. I originally had them all organized before I made the move, and now they are disorganized. So let's get going with this next shelf. First up is actually not a work of history, but I'm not entirely sure where to put this, and that is the Aeneid by Majito. This is the first volume of a webtoon serial that tells the story of the contention of Horus and Set. In Egyptian mythology, the god Set grew jealous of his older brother Osiris and eventually murdered him. After the murder of Osiris, his queen Isis bore a son Horus, who would eventually contend with his uncle Set for rulership of Egypt. And so this is that story. I have not gotten around to it. I really need to. And also really need to figure out a spot for it. But for now, it's just a transwise book in this section. A history of the ancient Near East, around 3000 to 323 BC, by Mark van den Meroep. So this is a textbook that looks at the ancient Near East, primarily focusing on Mesopotamia and to an extent the Levant, but it doesn't really go into Anatolia or ancient Egypt. I read this many years ago. I don't remember if I interlibrary loaned it while I was in college or if I did it once I had left college. But it was really good, although certainly academic in style and tone. And I wanted a copy of this in my collection, so I eventually picked it up. It is a withdrawn university library book. Brotherhood of Kings by Amanda H. Padani. So this is a book that looks at international relations in the ancient Near East, primarily during the Bronze Age. Particularly towards the end of the Bronze Age, there were a number of great states. Babylon, Mitanni, the Hittites, the greatest of them all being Egypt, and then you had Assyria and kind of sort of maybe Mycenaean Greece as the newcomers. And so this book looks at the relations between various kings, both during this international brotherhood period and earlier periods. It's really good. I read it last year and was one of the few history books that I read last year that actually hit with me. So, quite happy to have read it. I also have Padani's latest, Weaver, Scraps, and Kings, which is a history of the ancient Near East from 3500 to 323 BCE, or CE, however you want to use that term. Wait, no, it should be BCE or BC, however you want to use it. So the idea of this book is Padani follows along with the usage of cuneiform from its origins to this stoppage of using it as a form of writing with the conquest of Alexander the Great. And what Padani does is she not only looks at kings and queens and priests, but also average people. And that is really the selling point of this book. I read it when it came out in 2022 and really loved it. Let's ignore the fact that my recent attempt to reread it ended in failure. Okay? Moving on to Egypt, I have The Rise and Fall of Ancient Egypt by Toby Wilkinson. This is a broad overview of ancient Egypt from its prehistoric foundations to the suicide of Cleopatra VII. In a similar vein is The Story of Egypt by Joanna Fletcher, which is good as well, although perhaps a bit technical in the obsession with measuring various monuments. I do have one history that is devoted to a specific dynasty. Pharaohs of the Sun, The Rise and Fall of Tutankhamun's Dynasty by Guy de la Baudelaire. So this is a history of the 18th dynasty, which formed with the reunification of Egypt into the New Kingdom and ended with the death of Tutankhamun, although a lot of scholars will add A and Horemheb as members of the 18th dynasty, even though they technically would have been a transition duo to the 19th dynasty. On the one hand, I like this book because it's one of the few books that actually looks at a specific period of Egyptian history. On the other hand, I don't really like de la Baudelaires' style in his takes. I think I would have preferred somebody who was more of a trained Egyptologist than a Roman expert, which is what Guy de la Baudelaire is. He's more Roman history than Egyptian history, but it is what it is. I also have a few individual biographies and whatever the hell this book is. It's The Complete Tutankhamun by Nicholas Reeves. It's a study of the tomb of Tutankhamun, and it's lavishly illustrated. And also, to a certain extent, a bit weird. Reeves has some weird theories. Which is argued against in The Story of Tutankhamun, An Intimate Life of the Boy who became king by Gary J. Shaw. So this is a pretty good short biography of Tutankhamun. And a lot of these came out in 2022 and early 2023, celebrating the centennial of the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. I also have Ramses the Great, Egypt's King of Kings by Toby Wilkinson. This is also a really good biography of him. I wish I could find a really good biography of Hatshepsut, but lacking that, I have The Woman Who Would Be King by Kara Cooney. I really did not get on with this biography, and I did not get on with Cooney's more recent When Women Ruled the World. I'm not particularly fond of her style. But hopefully there will be another biography of Hatshepsut one of these days. Egypt's Golden Couple, When Akhenaten and Nefertiti Were Gods on Earth by John Darnell and Colleen Darnell. So this is a dual biography of Akhenaten and his chief queen Nefertiti. And I really don't like this book. It's weird. Very, very weird. Each chapter opens with a fictionalized imagining of something that goes on in the chapter, and that ticked me off. There are also scenes where the Darnells are doing their day job as archaeologists that could have been its own book. The biography of Akhenaten and Nefertiti really has not stuck with me at all. And ultimately, this book reads more like the script of a PBS special. Anyway, which would explain the Darnells running around doing their thing. Anyway. Tutankhamun's Trumpet, Ancient Egypt and 100 Objects from the Boy King's Tomb by Toby Wilkinson. So this is another biography of Tutankhamun and history of Egypt, although done in an unconventional way. I didn't particularly get on with it. I think because of the organization, of how Wilkinson sort of organizes the 100 objects, more so than anything else. Also by Wilkinson is Lives of the Ancient Egyptians. This is a sort of a dictionary of various ancient Egyptians. Moving on to the Hittites. I have The Kingdom of the Hittites by Trevor Bryce. This is a decent one-volume history of the Hittites and is part of a loose trilogy on the Hittites by Trevor Bryce that I have another book in that little trilogy. Although I would like to have a new history of the Hittites. Please let there be a new history of the Hittites. So, Life and Society in the Hittite World. So this is more focused on the social aspects of the Hittites. In the Land of a Thousand Gods, The History of Asia Minor and the Ancient World by Christian Merrick, in collaboration with Peter Frey and translated by Stephen Rindle. So this is a massive history of Anatolia from the prehistory through to the Roman Empire. Very, very technical, and in fact, too technical for me. Back to Trevor Bryce with Ancient Syria. So this is a history of Syria in the ancient world. From prehistory to Palmyra, so Syria under Roman rule. Now, I remember quite fondly, although it has been quite a while since I read it. I interlibrary loaned it about 10 or more years ago and wanted it in my collection. Next is Assyria, The Rise and Fall of the World's First Empire by Eckhart Fromm. So this is a history of Assyria that's rather good, although it starts to peter out at the end. Another book that peters out at the end is A Persian, The Age of the Great Kings by Lloyd Llewellyn-Jones. So this is a history of the Persian Empire, more specifically the Achaemenid Persian Empire, and it also peters out towards the end once the sources become almost exclusively Greek. And things get a bit weird and annoying. And basically a soap opera. Technology in the Ancient World by Henry Hodges. So this is a look at various technologies in the ancient world, primarily focused on the ancient Near East and Europe, and a few token explorations of technology in China and I think India. Let me check. I've had this book for a very long time. I'm pretty sure I probably bought it from not Barnes and Noble, like used from Amazon. Yeah, it's like pretty much all ancient Near East and Europe, and then Northern Europe, India, China, and the New World get about 23 pages of their technology, which is a bit annoying. So that was the ancient Near East and Egypt section of my library. There are a few works of ancient history that have been scattered, and they'll show up later this week. But until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe. And wish me luck. I have some adulting I need to do. Hopefully, I do not lose my cool. And then I have some cooking to do later on, which may also cause me to lose my cool. But anyway, hopefully things work out, and I will report back tomorrow. So until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.